This is Six Tackles with Gus, with Matthew Thompson and Gus Gould.
Welcome to Six Tackles with Gus as we have a look at Indigenous Round, always one of the great rounds in rugby league. We celebrate the Indigenous contribution to the sport, which is very profound indeed. On the show today, the Dragons have parted ways with Anthony Griffin. What do we know about the new caretaker coach? The Rugby League World Cup, might it be headed back to Australia? Have we got an alternate host venue as the French withdraw? And we'll preview all the games in Indigenous Round. And it's nearly Origin time, Gus, which is your favourite time of year. We get to talk all about Origin.
Hello, Matthew. How you doing?
Gus. I'm all right. I'm a bit croaky.
Yeah, too early to be talking about Origin.
They picked the teams on Monday.
Well, we'll talk about it Monday. Too early to be picking the teams. You all go off too early.
When is it okay to talk? Like when the opener rolls for the coverage on
when
Wednesday week?
When the medical's done, and we know who's in the team.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to try to extract some blood from your Origin stone. Let's start with our favourite segment.
Yes! No.
That's the rule.
No. Dear.
So Dr. Foxx sought a second opinion last week.
Yes, he didn't make it last week.
Scratched at the barriers. So my question to you is, the Foxx will score a hat-trick this weekend.
Is there a hope so button?
There it is, yes.
I hope he does.
Yeah, he's good to go now.
I know who hopes he does, is the Origin coach. He missed last year's series, but I think he's very much in the forefront of their mind at the moment. He hasn't played. They were hoping he played last week. They actually rang me last week to see if he was playing, and I said, look, I think it might be one more week. He just wasn't quite right, and he's too valuable to be risking at this stage, and I said there's a big part of the season ahead. So he's very much in the forefront of their minds so far as selection, whether it's for game 1 or game 2, but I guess it'll a lot of depend on how he appears on the weekend against the Titans, and the Bulldogs certainly need him. They need his leadership and his try-scoring ability. There's no doubt he makes them a better team. So yeah, if he could score a hat-trick, that would be wonderful.
You would never criticise Brad Fittler unfairly. Well,
I would.
You would.
Yeah.
Did they make a mistake last year leaving him out?
It's easy to say that in hindsight, whether it would have made the difference. Certainly his form at the back end of the year around the World Cup and the back end of the year for the Bulldogs was much better than the start of the season. I can see what they were looking for and what they wanted, but
he's been brilliant for New South Wales every time he's played for them.
He always has, and that's the argument now that we're going to get into over fellas like Tedesco and Trbojevic and where you go from there. I think Addo Carr is one of those players that will always rise to the occasion regardless of what's going on with his club. And you got to remember too, he had change of clubs last year. He was going from the team that's regularly competing for a premiership, the Melbourne Storm, back to a team that had been regularly competing for the Wooden Spoon. There was a big change in the culture and the way his club side was performing and the sort of service he was getting as well. So he was still in a very much in a learning phase in the early part of last season, and the side wasn't going well. So that may have inhibited his chances, I think. And that's a little bit like we've got with several players at this time of year, players that have been there and done it, that are not in good form and playing with clubs that are struggling, and it does impact on people's opinion as to whether or not they should be playing. And that's why fellas like Campbell Graham and Dylan Edwards come into the reckoning, because they're winning with winning teams and they're playing winning football. They're playing great football, and representative selection, I guess, in its purest form, is about who's playing the best at that time. But we don't pick it like that way all the time. We tend to stick with the incumbents or people that have been there before, knowing that they'll rise to the occasion. I've got no doubt Tedesco and Trbojevic would rise to the occasion if chosen, but if you're going on pure form this year, they probably struggle to make the team, and they would understand that as well.
I thought it was too early to be talking about Origin.
It is, but I just got it out of the way early. So
I'm going to change the batting order for my next question. Dylan Edwards could play on a wing for New South Wales. Yes! Oh!
He has played. He played wing. He played wing in lower grade football. He came down from Dorrigo as a 5'8".
Yeah, right.
This is a great story about perseverance and development of players as well, because he came down from Dorrigo to play SG ball, which at that time was an under-18s competition, and he was coming down every weekend to play, and the coach didn't pick him. He was on the reserves bench every week, but he kept coming down every week.
So Dorrigo's near Albury, isn't it?
Yeah, and I don't think he got a game. He might have got a couple of run-on games or something or other, and we always rated. He was a young 5'8", and it gets to and this is the benefit of having great recruitment people with great experience. And Jimmy Jones at Penrith is one of the best. He's a
champion.
He's the unheralded hero of what's happened out of there over the last decade. But when we got to the end of the junior representative season, we then decide where the kids go. Do they go back to their country town? Do they go back into the junior league? Or do they go back into academy program? Or do they go up and play in an older age group into the Jersey Flag as it was at that time, or NYC, National Youth Competition? And he hadn't played hardly any SG ball. He couldn't get a run in the team. But when it got to picking who goes up to the next grade, Jimmy Jones says Dylan Edwards has got to go up. And they kept saying Dylan Edwards has got to go up. He's got to go up. I don't know why you haven't been playing him. He's got to go up.
Wow.
We never interfered with selections, but Jimmy Jones, even just watching him train and knowing the kids sent him up, and he played a bit of wing and he played a bit of centre. I think he was on the wing in a grand final where they won the comp, and Robert Jennings got hurt early. He went to centre, played the rest of that game. Next year he came back and played fullback for the entire year, and then when he first came into NRL, he was played on the wing for a few weeks. He made his debut on the wing and played there for a few weeks before he got a couple of runs at fullback. And to be honest, didn't handle it well. He was only young and he was new to it. And they go back a grade, but they persevere. They keep working hard. And he's a player that just worked so hard. And now he would not be able to place in the Origin team.
What was it that Jimmy saw in him? Do you reckon?
Well, that's like getting blood out of a stone with Jimmy to find out the secret there.
I saw Jimmy on.
They were my favourite. They were some of my favourite parts of the day. Were late in the afternoon out there at Penrith. We'd sit under the trees on a couple of directors' chairs with a couple of bottles of water, and we'd watch them all train. And there'd be all the cockatoos and the trees. It used to be beautiful sitting out there just watching all the lower grades train. We have the 15s, the 16s, the 17s, and 18s. And they'd be going around doing their drills, and I'd say, "Who's he, Jimmy?" His name's Burton. Where's he come from? He comes from Dubbo. His mums are this, and he'd give you the whole. That boy's from Wellington. This boy's from, he'd know where they come. He'd know what their parents did for a living. What he was doing. He wants to be a centre. I think he's a back rower. Or he wants to. I've got to get him fitter. I've got to get him bigger. I've got to get him stronger. Yeah, I don't know about him. I don't know. I might have to leave. And he every afternoon I got the same story, but I just kept asking the same questions every day. Who's this? Who's that? And we'd sit there and watch them train. It was my favourite part of the day.
They could take photos of you and Jimmy sitting there talking together and use it as a retirement village advertising campaign.
Conversation then got onto the old days playing footy, and then it got onto racing. And
you had trotters with Jimmy, didn't you?
We bought a couple of trotters. Yeah, he loved greyhounds back in the old days. Jimmy Jones and I, when we played together back at Penrith, the night before a game, we play on Sundays. Saturday nights we used to go and sit at Penrith Dogs, and Jimmy's future wife, who was Johnny Cartwright's sister, used to go and put our bets on. So she'd run up and down the stairs. We couldn't run up and down the stairs. We had to save ourselves for the next day.
Serious?
Jimmy Jones and I'd sit up there, and she used to.
She's a keeper.
I said, Jimmy, you're going to have to marry her, mate. Which he did. Mary Cartwright.
Jimmy.
I think Mary Cartwright was the brains of the outfit, to be honest. I think she was doing the selecting.
Jimmy Jones.
He tells a funny story. He went to the football one day, and he was working with Canberra. He went down to play with Canberra at the back end of his career, and Timmy Sheen sat him down there as a talent scout. And they went to some schoolboy game, and he was dating Mary at the time, and they were sitting there, and he said, "I really like that number 7." She said, "Yeah, well, you're the talent scout, Jimmy, but I think the centre goes all right." It was Brett Mullins. So Jimmy's been taking advice off her ever since.
Yeah, maybe she's the real brains behind the operation.
Yeah, I think she is, Mary Cartwright.
Very good.
He'll be ringing me tomorrow now to blow up.
Did you win any races with Jimmy at the trots?
Yeah, we tried to. We bought it. We only buy cheap ones, horses that were racing, that people wanted to sell. Mainly bought them from New Zealand, or we bought trotters from Melbourne. And I mean, cheap, they buy them cheap, but we won 3 races. I got 3 photos at home up on the wall of our trotters winning races.
That's great.
I just went to watch Jimmy cheer him home. I'd laugh at Jimmy.
We
went to Penrith. We were in the last race. We got this horse over from New Zealand. It cost more to float it over than it did to buy the horse. And he was in the last race at Penrith Trots. It was freezing cold. There was no one there. And I mean no one there. We're the only two sitting in the grandstand. And it won by 30 metres. And Jimmy running up and down the grandstand cheering. He went on like a maniac. And I laughed.
Did you have a bet?
No, it was $1.80 or something. I didn't have a bet. No. They're trotters. You can't back trotters.
You back whatever you like, Gus, particularly with Bluebet, responsibly. Okay, Jimmy Jones, we salute you. We'll talk about this a bit later, but the Pacific Islands should host the 2025 Rugby League World Cup.
No. Not yet. Not yet. In time. I just don't know about the facilities. I don't know about the ability to broadcast. I don't know about the time zone. I don't know about the medical. I don't know about if someone got badly injured. How that's just a reality. You've got to look at all those contingencies. I think the safest place to now is players in Australia and New Zealand, and that seems like an easy thing to do now. You could take it back to England, but we all went there, and we've seen the difficulty of having that at the end of the year overseas like that, and the pressure it placed on next year's competition and the players. And I think if France can't hold it next year, which obviously they can't, they're pulled out, the safest bet is just to have it back here in Australia and New Zealand. I think that's the way we'll go. Unless we take it to Las Vegas.
Oh, that's a good idea.
I don't know about the time zone for television though.
Too long. There'll be no one left standing at the end of it come World Cup final day.
But our aim in time should be able to do these in Pacific Island centres. So the Fijian team plays in the Ron Massey Cup, right? The Silvertails. They play in the Ron Massey Cup. So our Ron Massey Cup boys, we've got a Ron Massey Cup team with Bulldogs this year, first time, and we sent a young team over there, and Fiji were too good for us, but it was such a great experience for the boys. We're due to play them in early June here in Australia. It's our home game. They've got to come over here. We've actually decided to take our home game back to Fiji. So we'll go back to Fiji, and I'll take Viliami Kiko over there, and we'll run some clinics and get Viliami to take us around the local area and meet the people in rugby league there, and use it as a development sort of process. And we're having some people from the NRL come with us and take advantage of that. And we need to keep doing that consistently. We need to go and give a lot of love to the Pacific Islands and help them with development, help kids who stay in the Pacific Islands not have to leave their country and leave home to get an opportunity. Most of them go to New Zealand and then they get into and then they come across and live in Australia. And I know that the leading authorities in those countries would love to see more kids stay at home if they had the coaching and they had the expertise and the facilities to develop them. So it should be, it should be part of the Australian government, and it should be part of the code as a code and the international arm of our code to be fostering these areas and develop them and spreading the word of rugby league. And rugby league can also help with the development of these countries. It's a platform for engagement and corporate relationships, but certainly in time, not right at the moment though.
World Cup's a valuable property now, though, given how competitive it's become with the emergence of Samoa and Tonga, of course. And
don't leave PNG out of that. PNG is a country.
Been very good.
It's a country of riches, and it's 6 million people up there. They've got 800 tribes, 800 different languages. It's still very fragmented. There's a Western civilization in the local communities who live the way that they want to live, but it's a fanatical rugby league supporter base, and it's a country full of riches and investment, and we could do a lot for that country by engaging in rugby league, and hopefully one day seeing them have an NRL representation.
How many Justin Ollams are there?
There's thousands of them, millions of them.
Millions of Justin Ollams.
Well,
imagine that.
It's only opportunity and development.
Yeah, I know.
Marcus Byers and all the great PNG players we've had over the years, but it's about opportunity, and I've dealt with a number of prime ministers and politicians up there, and their belief that rugby league can help the education of the country. They've got all these works going on up there. The problem with getting their people employed is education. You've got to go to school to get educated. Not all kids do. They made rugby league a subject in the school. All the kids turned up. So
rugby league's a subject in the schools?
Well, rugby league was banned in the schools up there for 25, 30 years.
Why?
I don't know. I think because of violence and different things. I don't know. But there was a rule that rugby league contact sports couldn't be played in the schools. But the Prime Minister two previous figured it was the only way I can get my kids to school. And when he made rugby league a subject, kids were turning up to school, boys and girls.
That's a great story. We have to explore that. That's a wonderful story. All right, away from rugby league for a moment. Australia and England. Jofra Archer's out for the summer.
Right.
Jimmy Anderson's got a groin strain. So my question to you is, no Jimmy Anderson, no England.
No. That's what I mean, no England.
Oh,
no. They're no chance. No England, they're no chance. 5-0.
5-0?
5-0.
With or without Anderson?
Yeah, 5-0. We'll beat them.
Ashes here on Nines, Wide World of Sports.
You've got to be on your game to come to Australia in the summer. Mind you, we need to get
We're over there, though.
our act together. Are we going over there?
What are you talking about?
Where's the Ashes this year?
Starts next month in England.
Is it in England?
Yes.
Oh, we're shot. No. No. Are we in England?
Where have you been?
Why? Well, I don't.
It's the English summer.
I'm in rugby league, mate. I have a job. I work for a living. I just don't read the papers every day.
You'll be able to watch it. You watch it here on 9 in the middle of the night when you're up doing your strategic
I
documents.
thought
or
they were
whatever you do.
here.
No. Where? So the Ashes are in England.
Are they?
Starting in June next month.
Oh, right.
So you reckon we're gone now?
Gone.
I'm glad I asked.
We're no chance.
What do you mean no chance?
We haven't got a batsman who can play spin for a start.
Well, they're not going to bowl any spin at us. It's
Yeah,
England.
but the ball will swing over there. You get
Backing Australia.
the different ball. What do they call it?
Dukes.
The Duke
Duke's
ball. Bit of swing off the movement. Any movement off the pitch, we're gone. We're gone. Any movement, whether it's spin or swing or what, it doesn't matter. Or the ball cutting in or away, doesn't matter. We can't play them.
Okay.
I'm no expert, but
No, well, you didn't even know. You didn't even know we were
I don't
over
even know
there.
where
So
they're
I'm glad
playing.
I asked the question. I should have.
I'm in football, mate.
Should have asked you about the golf this week.
I'm in football, mate.
And lastly, back to Origin. Win game 1, win the series.
Now wait on. Where's game 1?
Adelaide. That's why I asked.
Whoever wins in Adelaide wins the series.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then game 2, Suncorp. Game 3, Sydney.
Oh.
So if you,
hope it's not over by then.
So last time there was a game in Adelaide was the 2020 series with Wayne Bennett coming in.
Yeah.
And I remember talking to you about that, saying that obviously Queensland came back from 10-0 down to win that first game. They got blown away in the second game, but they had the home game at Suncorp. So you said they basically wrote off game 2, didn't they? And they were just going to win it at Suncorp in game 3.
Well, I wouldn't say they wrote it off, but I don't think they gave it their best shot. I don't think the coach gave it his best shot, put it that way. The players might have, but I think the coach kept plenty up his sleeve. And I remember that series distinctly because New South Wales were raging hot favourites to win the series. They were up 10-0 at half-time, and I said in commentary, he'll turn this round. Bennett will go down at half-time and he will turn this round. If he says what I think he's going to say and he fixes up what I'm seeing here, he will turn this around, which he did. And they went out and they won the second half because New South Wales weren't doing it right, weren't going well enough. And New South Wales obviously had the resounding second game win, but our record in deciders at Lang Park is disgraceful. Our record in deciders over the last 15, 20 years is disgraceful. We don't need this to get down to a decider. The only thing is if it's a decider this year, at least it's in Sydney, although Queensland have shown they can win down here. We're yet to prove that we can win with any consistency up there.
So having a game 3 at home, did that figure in your thinking with preparing for a series?
Absolutely. I always treated it as a three-game series. And if I thought the third game was going to be home, it needed to be over before we got there. I coached in 4 deciders, 3 wins and a draw.
So, right. So you. So you said you wanted it to be over before you got home. Is that what?
Well, if the third game was going to be in Queensland, I needed the series to be over after game 2.
That's right. Yes, but if you had game 3 in Sydney, was your psychology a little bit different?
Not so much different. I still put a lot of value on game 1. I really didn't want to lose game 1. The only time I lost game 1 was 94, the miracle try by Mark Coyne. Lost it in the last second. And then we had the game 2 in Melbourne. But I'd said prior to the series, whoever wins in Melbourne will win the series. Our only problem was we'd never won a decider in Queensland before. And I remember when Mark Coyne scored the try in the corner, I came in, they all had their heads down, and I said, we'll be the first team to win a decider in Queensland. Which was rather extraordinary because we weren't in the decider yet. We had to win in Melbourne to do it. We went to Melbourne and won 14-0. We virtually blotted the game out just to get the win, and then we went to Queensland and won pretty comfortably. So. It's, but you've got to look at it as a 3-game series, and you've got to look at your roster during that time, and and where the games are going to be played. No risk. I wasn't really a home and away coach, even at club level. My philosophy was anyone, anywhere, anytime. If we're a professional football team, if you're a professional footballer, it shouldn't matter where you play. It's just sidelines and try lines. Grass is the same. We should be able to go and ignore the crowd or ignore, the media and ignore everything else that tries to affect it.
Is it more significant in Origin?
Sorry?
Is it more significant in Origin, home state?
It is in Queensland. For the uninitiated. If you haven't experienced Brisbane, it can be quite intimidating. How many times have we gone there recently in deciders after smashing them in Game 2? We've had some massive wins in Game 2 and go there in Game 3 as raging hot favourites and never in it. Just not in it.
Last year.
So it's they were in it. They had a chance to win it, but
in terms of the turnaround, they flogged them in Perth.
We've got some terrible. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like it's Queensland. They're funny up there, mate. They're funny people, Queenslanders.
Oh.
They're funny
nice people, though.
Eh?
Nice people.
Lovely people.
Very, very nice
Lovely people, but funny people. No, mate, for this little 6-week period...
Yeah, you don't like them much.
Off goes their head, on goes the pumpkin. Don't worry about that. My neighbour, as luck would have it, years after his miracle try, my neighbour is Mark Coyne.
Yeah.
Can you believe that?
Yeah.
After all, he's my neighbour. His kids and my kids grew up together and we've known each other. We've been living alongside of each other for 21 years or something or other. And they're the world's loveliest couple.
And every day when he wakes up, his alarm ever since has been, that's not a try, that's a miracle.
That's a miracle.
Every morning, 6 a.m.
Every time this year up his flagpole goes that maroon fly. He's got an Australian flagpole with an Australian flag. It comes down in May, and he puts up this dirty maroon one up there, and he's got his try on loop in his lounge room the whole time. You can hear it all the way up and down the street. That's all you can hear going around. And they're lovely people. Him and Annie are the most beautiful people you'd ever meet in your life. But for this 6 weeks... off goes their head, on goes a pumpkin. They just become Queenslanders. Annoying people.
Have you?
They're even texting me during games when I used to call the Origins, they'd be texting me during games. Isn't Cameron beautiful? Oh, Billy's a superstar. Oh, JT, have you ever seen anyone better? Used to drive me insane.
So when you're at work, do they come over to your house and watch the game, or they just watch it at their house?
No, sometimes they come around and watch it with my wife and kids. Or they'd go down there and have a barbecue and watch it.
I'd lock them out.
Mark was involved with the Origin for a few times as a manager and different things. So, lovely people. They're just Queenslanders. What can I say?
I'm not going to ask you for your opinion on Queensland selection, but Liam Martin, test back rower, been great in Origin, had his first game back after a long layoff last week, was strong and plays the Broncos this week. Would you be happy to pick him on the back of 2 games?
Yeah.
Yep.
Proven.
Yep. Look, you've been pretty vocal about Turbo and getting him into the different environment. I don't. Is he fit? He can't. He's got to have some injury, doesn't he? He wouldn't.
He says he hasn't. It depends what you say by injury. Trust me. All footballers are aching and all footballers are injured. Right? You're never really 100% at this stage of the season ever. But there are some injuries you just play with, and I don't know. I've got my own theory on where Tom is at the moment and where his football is, and I've been in this position before with players that are playing with clubs that are struggling, and they might be struggling for form, but if they're proven at this level, sometimes it's the kick that they need. Bring them into camp, and it's just a different atmosphere. It's a breath of fresh air. They're with the best players in the game. They're playing against the best. They rise to the occasion. I've got no doubt if you pick Tom Trbojevic, and Tedesco's in the same boat. The Roosters are going terribly. He's not having anywhere near the impact he has. He's been up for a long time. They're going to pick him. I'm not suggesting they would ever drop him, but on form, you can't compare what he's doing and what Dylan Edwards is doing at the moment. So if you wanted to pick it on form, Dylan Edwards would be the fullback for New South Wales. Campbell Graham would be the right centre for New South Wales on form. But this incumbency thing and knowing that they've done it before and the impact that they've had on Origin before, I think that's the way they'll go.
Yeah.
I really do. And with that comes the pressure of you've got to have the conviction of your decision. With that comes the chance that you're going to be criticised if it fails.
Mm.
It's a little bit like leaving Odo Carr last year, leaving him out of the first game, and they've got roundly criticised for that because they lost the series, and Odo Carr was so great at the back end of the season. If they don't, if they pick Turbo and they pick Tedesco, and they fail, there's going to be a chorus out there saying, well, you didn't pick them on form, you shouldn't have picked them.
But Adokar was fit last year. That was the criticism.
Yeah,
but
I
don't know if Turbo is fit.
Bulldogs was going terribly, and he was in a team that was losing, and I just think that they probably went a little bit away from that for some reason. But Adokar's form at the back end of the year was much better than his form at the start of the year. His form in the early rounds of this year was scintillating.
Oh, he's been brilliant.
Absolutely.
And what about the World Cup?
He was brilliant.
Carved them up.
Terrific. But he's another example of maybe someone last year that they should have said, okay, look, we'll just ignore what he's doing at the moment. He's always done the job for us. He's played on the left wing. He's played on the right wing. We'll put him in. But by the same token, I can understand why they didn't at that time too.
Yeah.
Now, and whatever they do this week with regards to those players, I understand there'll be reasons for their decision. But if they've got to stand by it. That's their job. Their job is to make decisions. That's why they're entrusted with these roles. They make the decisions. They live and die by them. And the only way you prove you're right is if you win. If you don't win, it won't matter whether your decision was right or wrong.
Yeah.
People will say it's wrong. So you've got to win.
No one's saying James Tedesco shouldn't be in the side, should they? No, I've heard anyone say that.
Well, they're not going to say it because they know he's going to be picked.
Yeah.
They know he's going to be picked. But you cannot deny that Dylan Edwards is going better.
Yeah.
Now, I think they'll pick. I would pick Teddy.
Absolutely.
I think they'll pick Teddy, and I think Teddy will probably do the job. He'll get into Origin, and the juices will flow, and go from there. But if they come in and they pick those players and they lose, the criticism is going to be quite easy, isn't it? That's the role. That's the job. That's why you sign up for it.
So, just reading between, are you suggesting that there's a risk associated with picking Trbojevic? I mean, you've got Campbell Graham and Stephen Crichton, who are probably both in career best form. Are they risk-free selections compared to a risky choice?
Well, there's no risk in the world. The one thing you cannot deny is that Tom Trbojevic is not playing to the best of his ability at the moment. And there is no doubt that could be inhibited because he's injured, right? And he's playing with a team that is struggling. And I watched him really closely on the weekend about his number of engagements and where he engaged himself. And, all right, his brother wasn't playing and there's no Kieran Foran there anymore. And, maybe it's a struggle for him to get into the game in that side. And maybe they're not getting the dominance up front that they wanted. And maybe the Sharks had them on the back foot for a lot of the game. And maybe he's hurt, but it certainly wasn't his fizzy best, where he's getting around and really annoying you. If you're playing against him and you're an opposition coach, you're petrified where he is on the field the whole time. He just wasn't putting himself in those positions, and I think it's a concern. I would pick him if it were my team. I'd probably pick him and Tedesco, and I'd back that they came in and got away from the club scene where they're struggling and where their team is struggling, and would come in and get it done for New South Wales. Having said that, I totally understand the argument that, well, let's pick our teams on pure form. We did lose last year's series. What more does a Dylan Edwards or a Campbell Graham have to do to warrant Blues selection?
Yeah. Fascinating. Fascinating.
Am I talking English? Does he understand that, what I'm saying?
No, I'm just sort of contemplating what you've been saying there. So Monday, all those questions will be answered.
Yeah, well, see, selectors don't read the papers to find out what team they should pick. So they're not listening to me. They're not listening to you. They're not listening to what's written
in the paper.
Eh?
When we're in the paper.
What's that?
They might be listening to us in the car. Maybe they are listening to us.
Yeah, but they're not going to read the media or go with what the popular opinion is or what people
of course not.
Or the path of least criticism. You can't do it like that. Otherwise, you shouldn't be in the job. They've got to back their judgment. And that's why they put their hands up to coach these teams. They've been in the environment. They know the landscape. And if you're going to be in a position of a decision maker, you've got to make decisions and you've got to back your judgment. Simple as that. That's the gig. That's the gig, and they'll do it well. And I hope they win in Adelaide because I think that'll decide the series.
Speaking of gigs, there's one going at the Dragons. Anthony Griffin gone. So Ryan Carr, 34 years of age, has stepped up as interim coach for the rest of the year. We know that there's a jostle going on for that position. They want Jason Riles, Ben Hornby's there, Dean Young is the other contender. 34 years of age, that's a early stage of your career to be stepping into an interim coaching job for a team that hasn't won in 6 weeks?
Yeah, Ryan's done some good work in coaching over the years, and he was recruited this year as an assistant coach to Anthony Griffin, who was obviously looking for some of Ryan's skills to impart on the rest of the team. How much they used him at that time and how much they listened to him, I don't know, but so they've made the decision now to part ways with the head coach, and they'll put an interim coach in when they're going to appoint their new coach going forward. I'd imagine they can't wait too long because players will want to know, players off contract, players they're trying to retain, players they're trying to recruit. They'll all want to know what's going on. The player market is very active at the moment. There's a lot of people bubbling around and phone calls being made, and clubs trying to adjust their roster, clubs trying to adjust salary caps, clubs trying to replenish and rejuvenate and find new players and people that can help them win games. It's all pretty active out there behind the scenes, and the coach is always a key part of that in the discussions and negotiations, and whether a player thinks that you're the club of choice because of who coaches your team. It's a major factor. So the Dragons have made the decision that going forward, they've parted company with Anthony Griffin after 2 and a bit years there. Ryan Carr stepped in the interim role. Nothing much will change down there at the moment, so far as day-to-day activities and all of that. And Ryan Carr will do his best with the team, and the players will. So this is the thing that happens too. I mean, the coach is gone. How often do we see that the team bubbles up the next week and wins? And I think they'll beat the Roosters this week. They should have beaten them on Anzac Day.
Yeah, it was a good game.
A while ago. I just think they'll bubble up. Lomax is back in the team, and they brought the young hooker back. I think that's their positive moves. And two, when the coach gets the sack, it's kind of the last excuse for the players. So if that was one of their excuses, well, that no longer exists. So they're going to have to aim up.
Yeah,
and they've got careers and futures and contracts and everything as well. So it can't all be dumped on the head coach. Everyone's now under the pressure.
When a coach fails, everyone fails?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I wanted to...
There's certainly factors.
I wanted to just grab a little bit of what Paul McGregor has said in the press, actually, going back a little while now, and I'm conscious, obviously you're involved with another club, but Paul McGregor, speaking about issues outside of coaching and on a structural level, made the point that back in 2018, they lost that epic game against Souths in the finals, 13-12, and then within 15 months later, he lost ownership of retention and recruitment. So there was a situation where Dean Young, Shane Flanagan, and Paul McGregor were all together and had to pick the team. They all had a vote. So, for instance, if the one that's been cited here by Paul McGregor is if Dean and Shane wanted Matt Duffy at fullback and he wanted someone else, the assistant coaches got the nod. I mean, that's the sort of stuff that has to be addressed, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
In addition to changing the head coach appointment.
Absolutely. But that goes to the structure of the organisation and the organisation of all those types of duties and the responsibilities for it, which, Paul McGregor could probably tell you a lot of stories. I spent a couple of days there. They wanted me to do a review a few years ago, and in the end I didn't do a review. It was widely publicised that I did. I didn't. I ended up refusing to do it and put my name to it for various reasons, but I did speak at length with Ben Harron, the manager, Paul McGregor, and the then CEO, Brian Johnston, about what their challenges were and why I wasn't going to put my name to a review, because I just didn't think they would make the changes that I would recommend, and I didn't think the review was going to be extensive enough. I felt that what they were asking me to do was to write a report to get past whatever they had to report to the board for that year. And I said, unless the review is going to go into this extent, unless you really want to do what needs to be done. And I actually preempted what would happen the following year. And I sat down with Paul and Ben Harron and Brian Johnston and actually said, look, after 10 rounds next year, this is what it's going to look like unless you want to make these changes and do these things. And I left from there. When Paul eventually went, they rang me up. They had a new CEO then, I think Ryan, who's the CEO down there now? Anyway, he and Craig Young rang and said, can we get a copy of the review? And I said, there was no review. I said, there's no document, there's no copy or anything. But I went and spoke to them about my concerns at the time. And but that's, I won't talk out of school with all of that, but just watching what Paul McGregor has said here, that's one of many, many, many factors that had to be addressed for that club going forward.
Yeah.
Paul
McGregor
lost his job, which I kind of preempted at the time, unless there was significant change in a number of areas.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen, but that's not talking out of school. But there was never a review. I didn't put my name to a review.
I've got to say, it was a bit concerning and a bit farcical yesterday that they announced Anthony Griffin was leaving the club at 8 a.m. and then the players fronted up to the media at 8:30. They're the first people to talk about it. That's a weird setup.
Well, again, you don't want to comment on the way clubs handle their situation, but if you're going to make significant changes like that, then you have to be upfront and face the media yourself and go for whoever is responsible for that decision.
That's right. Yeah.
But the problem here is I don't know if there's any one person that's responsible for that decision at the Dragons, or it's a board decision, or who has to administer the verdict. But but there goes the whole argument about football clubs and the responsibility of the coach, and whether the club is set up right for success or it's set up to make life difficult for the people that are trying to work there. I'm not saying the Dragons are set up badly. I'm just saying that it's difficult. They needed to make some changes and they didn't, and I think that cost Paul McGregor his job, and it's why they've probably struggled. It's been one of the factors why they've probably struggled since, and that's without knowing what's happened since that time.
Yeah. All right. Without starting you, I've been wanting to bring this up with you. The Reece Walsh thing, the shoulder charge in inverted commas. Now we've banned the shoulder charge from rugby league because it brings potentially dangerous consequences, and this is when we talk about the head-on shoulder charge, a defender charging at an attacker shoulder cocked, and it all goes wrong. They hit him in the head. Surely a fullback trying to save a try should be allowed to use whatever means possible, except kick someone or hit him around the head, to save a try. So what's the Walsh one on the weekend? The alternative was to try and make a normal tackle, which we've seen go wrong before, where he can hit the bloke around the head or he can suffer an injury. Or the other alternative is to let him score the try. What was he to do?
Or injure himself.
So is there not...
Or put himself at injury.
Is there not some argument where a fullback's job is to save tries?
Yeah, my response to this is not, forget about that incident there. I'll come back to that incident in a moment. But everything that went on with the shoulder charge, everyone knew the shoulder charge blindsiding a player that wasn't aware, coming from behind or coming from side on, or hitting him as he got the ball, unprotected. We all knew the shoulder charge that we wanted eradicated. But what happens is, as has happened with the hip drop, and as has happened with cannonball tackles, and as has happened with all these other chicken wing type things that they've done, and spicy wings and chicken tenders and all the different things that we have in the game these days, is that everything gets lumped in now, right? What we can't do is decipher the difference between one incident and another. To me, they're all case by case. This blanket ban on everything never works and always leads to this type of confusion. So, technically people who argue with me and say the shoulder charge was banned, therefore it's illegal. Yes, I know it's banned. And yes, it's illegal. He's been charged. However, that's not what I would deem to be the type of shoulder charge that needed to be eradicated for the game. And it's the same as me bracing myself at different times. You'll see smaller players or players, depending on the movement of the player, and they might come at them rapidly, they might come at... And as I've said many, many times, and you watch it, it happened to Gerard Hargreaves the other night where Moses Leota ran at him. Now, if you watch Moses Leota has got the ball, but he shoulder charges Gerard Hargreaves, who would have been safer to himself had he shouldered it as well take the brunt.
Yes.
Which is all that Reece Walsh did.
Yeah.
If you watch the vision again, Justin Olam moves the ball from his right arm to his left arm. He can feel the collision coming.
And then stepped into him.
And then shoulder charged towards him. Now, once he did that, the safest thing for both players
That's right.
is to have a collision at that point, a shoulder collision. They got ready for a shoulder collision. A shoulder collision is completely different to a shoulder charge.
Yes.
Which the people in our game have never, if they didn't understand it, they didn't want to understand it. They didn't want to go down that line because they didn't want to have to get into the grey area, was it or wasn't it. They just wanted a blanket ban on everything. It's like obstructions. It's like, we're going to ban everything, right, that remotely looks like it, which is not our game, and it's too hard. Now, I defy anyone down there at the league to tell me what sort of tackle they would have made in that instance, and I guarantee you that young Reece Walsh came up with a more effective and safer method for both players than anything they can come up with. And I'm prepared, I said it, and I wrote it on social media, I'm prepared to fly Justin Olam up and run him at them, and you tell me what you would have done that incident, knowing that there is a try at stake. Right?
That's the point. Their job is to save tries.
Yes.
They are fullbacks.
Yes.
That is their job.
Yes.
What is the alternative in that situation? The alternative is to let him score.
Let him score, or and we saw this a couple of years ago. I can remember James Tedesco coming over on Mako Sivo and tried to do the legitimate tackle and didn't play for 3 weeks.
That's right.
Got knocked out.
Yes.
All right, and we're all worried about HIA and all this sort of thing, and you've only got to get a slap in the face and they're going to send you off for a test. So players
Nearly missed the grand final.
Yeah. Well, they let him play.
Yeah. But his job, he was saving a try.
Absolutely. I don't think what he did was dangerous.
No.
Of course, it's a shoulder charge. It is, but it's a shoulder collision. It's not a shoulder charge. He didn't shoulder charge on an unsuspecting defender or a defender that couldn't defend himself. Justin Olam was defending himself 3 strides before the shoulder collision took place. It was a shoulder collision. Both people got up and walked away. Job done. I saved him a try. Well done, mate. Great run. But we walked away from it.
Yes.
Now, any other method to either save the try, all right, or to self-preservation for myself could have ended up in either a try being scored, which is not what you want as a competitive footballer. It's professional football after all. But Reece Walsh could have injured himself and got knocked out of the game.
Yep.
So it was the safer of all alternatives open to him. Shoulder collisions are not shoulder charges. And we see a lot of them penalised because what they do is they throw them all in the bucket. It's the same with this stupid hip drop thing. It's the same with all these tackle names that we come up with. What happens is we see one and they all get a fervour for it and then we throw everything on top of it. And don't start me on all that rubbish.
I was trying not to start
it's too...
But I knew
they make it too hard.
6 tackles trivia on the way to the break. It is Indigenous Round, so pretty straightforward one today, I reckon. Who captained the Indigenous All-Stars against the Maori All-Stars this year in the All-Stars match over in New Zealand? On the way to the break, Stories of Origin, Series 2, #1 sports podcast in the country. Thank you to everyone who has downloaded and listened to the episodes in Series 2 so far. Monday, May 22, so Monday coming, the Morris Boys feature, who were part of that very famous Game 1 in 2014 when New South Wales ended Queensland's 8-year winning run, and both were incredibly brave. Brett played with a broken shoulder, and Josh with an ACL. Got up off the ground and tackled Greg Inglis in the same game. Here's a snippet of what you can look forward to on Monday.
We just had enough. I think the people of New South Wales had enough. Queensland had that sort of talk that we didn't care about Origin and that they own that arena. And as New South Wales blokes, that just pissed us off even more. We wanted to win more than anything.
We'd been in those Australian camps with all those Queensland players and they were talking about Origin, and it just wound you up, and you're just like, I just can't wait to beat you guys. So in 2012 we had the test in Townsville where they sang the Queensland chant as well, so that didn't go down too well with a few of us as well, and
So that's after Australia won a test.
that was after Australia won a test. Yeah, that kind of created a little bit of a divide between the New South Wales and Queenslanders there, and then it kind of hung around for a little bit.
Indigenous All-Stars captain this year was
Don't know, Cody Walker.
Cody Walker. Well done. And it is wonderful to see South Sydney and all the clubs getting behind the Indigenous Round. Obviously, Souths have got a very special affinity with the Indigenous community, but wonderful Indigenous jumpers and great stories behind the design. So we'll see all of those in their glory this weekend.
Absolutely, very significant round in our competition every year, and the Indigenous All Stars is a very significant team in our country as well. But wonderful week of celebration and recognition, and I know the Indigenous players look forward to it greatly. We've got a beautiful jersey, the Bulldog jersey. I like it.
Cracker.
Predominantly black, but it's great design. Saw Josh Adokar. I think they had a smoking ceremony out there today to launch it for the NRL. So, looking forward to it for sure.
Couple of Ask Us questions before we preview Indigenous Round. Michael Mortimer says, would you advocate a return to Ashes tours from a hopeful rugby league fan in the United Kingdom?
The kangaroo tours, you'd love to have them.
Would never happen now, though, would it? How long do they go for? They were a couple of months at least.
Back in the day, the kangaroo tours, their season currently runs the same time as our season, right? So they play in their summer months over there with our winter. It wasn't always like that. They used to play in the winter. So when they go on a kangaroo tour, and back in the early days, they used to go by boat. It used to take them months to get across there, a month to get home. But they would actually play midweek games against club teams. The Australian second team would play against club teams, and it was a tour that went over 6 or 8 weeks, and they'd play 3 test matches. And as a kid growing up, it was something that you looked forward. You looked forward to Great Britain coming out here. You looked forward to Australia. I can remember sitting up in the early hours of the morning listening to the radio. Dad would get me up to listen to the Pommies play Australia, and it's one of my great memories of him and my great memories of football in the early days, and part of why you fall in love with the game. But the kangaroo tour was phenomenal, and it was every 4 years, and it was something in a player's cycle that, if you had a 8 or 10, 12-year career, it might happen 2 or 3 times in your career, and could you have a good season on that occasion and coincide with selection in the kangaroo tour? And that was seen as the pinnacle of personal achievement, to be on a kangaroo tour. You'd love to see it happen. Now, there's no football in England at that time of year. They run their post-season representative fixtures. It's still a tour, but not like it used to be. I just don't think the professional player today has the time, and the game has the scope to do it. It's unfortunate, and I think what England did to play their football in their summer months rather than their winter months has been a boon for them as well. It was just too cold and icy cold and freezing across there in the winter, but playing it in the summer months, I think the players enjoyed that a hell of a lot better. Players back in the day would play their season here and then go over there and have a half season, 3/4 season in England. I remember Brett Kenny and Peter Sterling played in a club challenge against each other. Australians would have an off season in England. In between seasons, would go over and play with an English club. Well, you can't do that anymore. No. You either play in England or you play in Australia. The UK Super League needs a lot of help. We need to help keep promoting it. The World Cup was great at the end of last year, but we seem to be buying whatever stars we can buy. We've got bigger salary caps and bigger salaries out here, so it's an inducement for their best players to come out here, which affects the popularity of their competition over there. We saw St Helens, who are a very good side, come out here and beat our defending premiers Panthers in the World Club Challenge. Things like that help the UK Super League. I don't think we can ever change their time zone across there.
I remember the 1990 Kangaroo Tour. That was one of the last ones. I remember getting out and watching the Kangaroos play the midweek games against all the teams, all the club teams. And I remember Great Britain coming over here and playing against some of our club teams. They were awesome events.
Brad Fittler went on that tour, one of the youngest Kangaroo tourists ever.
Yep, he did.
Bob Fulton rang me up. He said, "Is Brad Fittler ready for a Kangaroo tour?" I said, "He'll make a great tourist," which he did.
He put on 12 kilos, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then you paid for the minibar. Well done.
He put it all on my tab.
Yeah. Cost a lot of money. Let's talk about Indigenous Round. Thursday night footy. We kick it all off at Suncorp Stadium. 7:30 live and free on 9. Broncos, no Adam Reynolds on Bluebet. I can tell you, as we record this at midday on Wednesday, $2.95. Penrith are at $1.40. Of course, Reynolds is a big out. Jock Madden is playing halfback for the Broncos.
Yeah, I can't see anything but a Panther victory here. Certainly bounced back the other night and put the Rooster to the sword. Bronco did beat them in round 1 this year down there at Penrith, so I'd imagine there's a fair bit of redemption there for these Penrith players. We're on the eve of Origin selection, and as we saw last week, cometh the hour, cometh the man. Nathan Cleary and Jerome Luai stood up. Saio was outstanding. They're ready for their Origin selection again, and this will be a nice way to top it off and get back at the Broncos for their first round defeat. I think Panthers win, and the loss of Reynolds is just too great for them to overcome right at the moment, particularly against a quality team.
You've already flagged this, but the early game Friday, 6 p.m, is at Jubilee, which is another important factor. The Dragons, $2.75 outsiders against the Roosters at $1.45. There's no Joey Manu, of course, for the Roosters as well. So a few things, notwithstanding the axing of the coach for the Dragons. A couple of little factors in the Dragons' favour. Drew Hutchison is playing halfback. Luke Keary wears the number 6.
The Red V at Jubilee. They bounce back.
Okay.
I like the fact that Lomax is back in the side. I think Liddell comes in on the bench for hooking or going to play hooker. But I think they'll lift, and I think the Roosters are going very poorly at the moment.
Yeah.
It's just sort of gone from bad to worse. That was
awful.
That was awful the other night. It really was. So they've got some sorting out to do. I want to see them back to form before I go tipping them against anyone at the moment.
Friday night footy from Allianz, the Rabbitohs, $1.35 against Parramatta at $3.20. Now, Mitchell Moses is back after missing round 11 because of concussion, but the bad news is that Sean Lane is going to miss up to a couple of months with a hamstring problem. They're the main changes. Tom Burgess hasn't been named this week after he withdrew last week because of back spasms, so he's a significant loss for Souths. But Indigenous Round, South Sydney lines up for them, given how well they're going.
Yeah, they're going too well for the Eels at the moment. Even though Moses is back, they missed Moses last week, Parramatta, but South Sydney have just got it on a string at the moment. I think they can beat pretty much anyone, anytime they like, right at the moment.
Para 14th on the ladder, you know. They've only had 4 wins this year. They're in a bit of trouble.
Yes, they are. And they're still searching around in the marketplace for players, so they must be worried about their depth.
Joe Fangawi, they're trying to get him to the club straight away, I read today. Is there some others too, is there? Ooh. The top dog knows something.
So I don't engage in scuttlebutt.
No. But you just give me the odd expression. Then you make me ask, and then you brush me. Yeah. Saturday, 3 p.m, up at Coffs Harbour, this one. Sharkies $1.33, up against the Knights at $3.30. They're going better than that, Newcastle.
They certainly are.
They flogged the Titans last week.
They certainly are, and I thought the Sharks, they had a good first 30 minutes the other day, but sort of paddled their way through the second half against Manly. It wasn't that impressive, and the week before they sort of got lapped up there in Brisbane, so... I think it's a lot closer than that market would suggest. I think the Knights are a real big chance. But usually when you take your home game away from home like that, when you take it to a regional area, it's it's something they look forward to. It's a camp situation, and you don't want it to cost you the 2 points if you can help it. So, look, I'll favour Sharks slightly, but I think it's much closer than what that betting market would suggest.
Now, this is the game that I'm keen on this weekend. Saturday, 5:30, Leichhardt Oval. The Tigers unchanged. They've got a dreadful recent record at Leichhardt, but it might get better this week. Against the Cowboys at $1.60 favourites, Tigers $2.35. As I said, no changes for Tigers. Jermaine Tenor-Brown out, Riley Price in for North Queensland.
Yeah. I want to tip Tiger.
Go the Tigers.
I want to tip Tiger. they can win. I thought they were very good against South last week. And Cowboys have,
Had a couple of good weeks,
they've
but
had
the
a couple of
form's
good-
not. Is
yeah,
the form that good?
I don't know if the form's that good, and they've got to take it away from Townsville. They bounced back with a win in Townsville last week, but things were in the balance until Dragons lost a man to the sin bin. So, I'm going to tip Tiger. Why not? Tiger fans, another win for the Tiger.
Get the Leichhardt. Pack it out.
They've got a very good young forward pack. Very good young forward pack.
They've got a very good young fullback.
Yeah,
He's a good player, isn't he?
Good winger. I told you they've got the makings of a very good team. Leichhardt Oval. The spirits of Leichhardt just might stand up this week.
Let's hope the Tigers can notch a long overdue win there at Leichhardt. For Tigers fans, that is. For Cowboys fans, they're hoping to continue the bad run for them. Saturday, 7:30pm. Dolphins, $2.75 at Suncorp against the Storm at $1.45. Jesse Bromwich and Branko Lee both return. Ray Stone also returns. And Mark Nichols is in the squad, so he may well play also. So there's some big ins for the Dolphins, who were depleted, but yet still smashed the Sharkies in Magic Round and then had the week off. And Nelson Asfa-Solomona has been named in the starting team despite copying a knock in the ribs last week, with Tui Kamikamica back to the bench for Melbourne. This is a heavy-duty clash, this one.
Yeah, and teams coming off the bye have been terrific. They've got a great record so far this year. We're getting into the meat of the season. Origin is just around the corner. Look, I think Storm probably outgunned them, but again, this the old coach up against Craig Bellamy, he'll have something to say about it. I don't think this is as cut and dried as what the market suggests. I'll favour Storm slightly, but only slightly.
Underestimate Dolphin at your peril. That's one thing I'm learning.
Storm have got a really good record at Suncorp too.
They do,
They're home away from home for a while, and and that was pretty impressive the other night. Even though Broncos had 12 men for 20 minutes of the game, and they lost Reynolds early. Gee whiz, Look, if Dolphin win, I won't be surprised, but I'll tip Storm.
All right, Sunday 2pm. Bulldogs $2.05, Titans $1.77. Josh Adokar back on the wing for Canterbury. Carl Oluwapu goes in to start at 5/8, and Josh Reynolds drops to the bench. And Aaron Clark is back for the Titans after missing round 11 because of a finger injury. So the Dogs hopeful, no doubt, Gus, that you can get back on the winners list this week at home.
Yep, they try hard every week, but they're just struggling to close out some games at the moment. So it'd be nice to get a win if they could. But Titans have scored 26 points in their last 5 games. Exactly 26 points in their last 5 appearances.
Oh, that's quirky.
I hope they don't score 26 this week.
But they can score. How many they conceded?
In their last 5 games, they've actually scored 26 points.
On the knocker.
Some they've won, some they've lost. But I believe they're down here in camp for the week too. They're training in Sydney in preparation for it, so they're obviously ready for a win, desperate for a win.
And Sunday footy comes from Canberra, where the Raiders they've won 5 in a row.
They have.
So I was having a look at the ladder before, actually. They could move up to 6th on the ladder if they win here. They're $1.55 against Manly at $2.45. Now, Zach Wolford's out, but Danny Levi's back, and Manly. Jake Trebojevic has been named to make an early return from a calf injury. Josh Schuster is also back for his first game since round 8, but Josh Aloiai and Kalmatui Langi are both facing extended periods out with shoulder and facial fracture respectively. Ben Trebojevic moves into the starting side in the second row. Samuela Fainu and Ben Condon, the new faces on the interchange bench. So a stack of changes for Manly, but they do get Jake back.
Yes. Easy to tip Raider, very hard to tip Sea Eagle. You win 4 or 5 in a row in this competition, you leapfrog a lot of teams, which the Raiders have done. And of course, that 5-match winning streak comes off the back of getting flogged at home by the Panthers, who absolutely put them to the sword.
And after Jack Whiten said he was leaving?
He said he was leaving, yeah. So they've obviously galvanised and got their footy right, and they've won some games that they were predicted to win, but they've won them. You've still got to get out there and do it. And it would be hard to see them losing at home against Sea Eagles, so I'll tip Raider. So I'm tipping Panther, Dragon, Rabbit, Shark, Tiger, Storm, Bulldog Raider.
Thank you, Gus.
Thank you.
Thank you for bearing with my croaky voice. I've got 48 hours to get it right for
If you give
Friday.
me the flu, I'm going to be filthy.
I know. Well, Joey gave it to me, so I'm filthy on him.
Joey was crook on Sunday. Everyone's been crook here.
I sent him home Friday. He was laying on the floor of the commentary box and couldn't talk. I said, "What are you doing here? Go. Goodbye." And he left. That's 6 tackles with Gus for this week. Enjoy your Indigenous Round, Round 11, and the Origin teams are named on Monday. It is that time of year. Talk to you next week.
What are you really gambling with? For free and confidential support, call the number on the screen or visit the website